Jaya Radha Kalachandji Radha Kalachandji Shri Radhe. Jaya Radha Govinda Radha Govinda Shri Radhe. Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada. Shri Shri Radha Madhava Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Kalachandji Ki Jai. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Can you turn the screen just a little bit so I can see it? Thank you. Hare Krishna, everyone. Good morning. Welcome to this Shri Shri Radha Kalachandji Srimad Bhagavatam class. Today we're reading from the 4th canto, 31st chapter, text 11. And we're kind of gonna be exploring it together. This is a little last minute. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Dustin, could you hand me the laptop? Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udirayat. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances unto the personality of Godhead, Narayan, unto Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Nashta prayesha bhadreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavati uttama shloke bhaktir bhavati naishtiki. By regular attendance in classes on the Bhagavatam and by rendering of service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed, and loving service unto the personality of Godhead, whose praise with transcendental songs is established as an irrevocable fact. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, and my spiritual master opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my respectful obeisances unto him. Okay, let's get the verse up. Again, it's 4:31, and then we're going to do 1 through 13. And yeah, we'll start here. Do we have the microphones ready? And if you can, change the battery for them too, so that they don't die as they get passed around. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So we're reading from the last chapter of the 4th canto. We're finishing up the 4th canto. And so in the previous chapter, the Prachetas see Vishnu. They see the Supreme Lord. And he gives them a benediction. He's so pleased with them that at the end of their life, they'll all go back to Godhead. At the end of their... but he also wants them to take to family life and to get married. And so then they marry the daughter of the forest, pretty much. The trees had taken over the planet. And so... they start burning down all the trees with fire from their mouths, I believe. And Lord Brahma gets distressed, and they present to them the daughter of the forest. I can't remember her name. Marisha, yes, okay. And then her son is Daksha, right? So now the Prachetas had their son, and they're gonna, in this chapter, they're going to, again, leave family life and do austerities, and they're going to meet Narada Muni. So we'll start. Yeah, I'll start reading. The great sage Maitreya continued. After that, the Prachetas lived at home for thousands of years and developed perfect knowledge in spiritual consciousness. At last, they remembered the blessings of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and left home, putting their wife in charge of a perfect son. I was thinking all these purports are quite nice, so we can read them and we can just share any thoughts or comments we have as we go. Purport. After the Prachetas had finished their penances, they were blessed by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Lord blessed them by telling them that after finishing their family life, they would return home back to Godhead. Wow, that's a pretty nice benediction, right? In due course of time, after finishing their family life, which lasted thousands of years, according to the calculation of the demigods, the Prachetas decided to leave home, putting their wife in charge of a son named Daksha. This is the process of Vedic civilization. In the beginning of life as a brahmachari, one has to undergo severe penances and austerities in order to be educated in spiritual values. The brahmachari or student is never allowed to mingle with women and learn from the beginning of life about sex enjoyment. The basic flaw in modern civilization is that boys and girls are given freedom during school and college to enjoy sex life. Most of the children are Varna Sankara, meaning born of undesirable fathers and mothers. Consequently, the whole world is in chaos. Actually, human civilization should be based on the Vedic principles. This means that in the beginning of life, boys and girls should undergo penances and austerities. When they are grown, they should get married, live for some time at home, and beget children. When the children are grown up, the man should leave home and search for Krishna consciousness. In this way, one can make his life perfect by going home to the kingdom of God. You want to read the next paragraph, Jit or Dustin?
Unless one practices penances and austerities in his student life, he cannot understand the existence of God. Without realizing Krishna, one cannot make his life perfect. The conclusion is that when the children are grown, the wife should be put in the children's charge. The husband may then leave home to develop Krishna consciousness. Everything depends on the development of mature knowledge. King Prachinabharishat, the father of the Prachetas, left home before the arrival of his sons, who were engaged in austerity within the water. As soon as the time is ripe, or as soon as one has developed perfect Krishna consciousness, he should leave home, even though all his duties may not be fulfilled. Prachinabharishat was waiting for the arrival of his sons, but following the instructions of Narada, as soon as his intelligence was properly developed, he simply left instructions for his ministers to impart to his sons. Thus, without waiting for their arrival, he left home.
Giving up a comfortable home life is absolutely necessary for human beings and is advised by Prahlad Maharaj. Itvatma patam griham anda kupam. To finish this materialistic way of life, one should leave a so-called comfortable home life, which is simply a means for killing the soul. Atma patam. The home is considered to be a dark well covered by grass, and if one falls within this well, he simply dies without anyone's caring. One should therefore not be too much attached to family life, for it will spoil one's development of Krishna consciousness.
All right. Wow. It's a very nice purport. It's not the one we're focusing on. We'll get to that one in a little bit. That's text 11. But I just thought, I don't have much prepared, and these purports are really dense with so much, spiritual knowledge. I was thinking how wonderful this Vedic system is, that people are given so much training before they try to enter into married life. I know for myself, and actually not really. I'm getting the training right now, but so many of my peers and so many, in this generation, young people are started off by totally ruining their mind from the very beginning almost. It's like all these degraded things are so much in your face everywhere all the time. And we're lucky we have a Gurukul here, but in public school it's from even 8 years old, 9 years old, they're getting trained to have a boyfriend and have a girlfriend, and then they have the sex education class, and it's just, Prabhupada would call it a slaughterhouse for the young children being brought up in this environment where they're practically traumatized from their very childhood. And we see that people, they're lacking so much character development, they're lacking so much completeness in themselves, that when they later, they're trying to enter all these relationships and all of them are failing. I've had 10 girlfriends and I'm 23 or something like that. It's because they never took the time to really complete themselves as a person. They never took the time to, have that development. It's just they were thrown right into sex life, what Srila Prabhupada is saying here. So we should encourage the training of everyone to, even maybe they don't have to move into the ashram and give 10 years, but at least people should, travel, or just get some life experiences before they're so quickly attached to someone, and then their identity is almost molded around that person, because it's such a formative time in their life where they're getting into relationships. Yeah, and then Srila Prabhupada, he talks about how Krishna, he talks about how many mess ups happen because of this. We're seeing so many teenage pregnancies and so many uncared for children in the world, just because this is the culture, is that no one is prepared, no one is trained, no one is ready to take care of another soul. In fact, some of them are so unprepared that they don't even acknowledge that it's a soul within them. They say, oh, it's just a lump of flesh. That's how poor our training is of parenthood and of taking care of others. Yeah. And then as we continue in the purport, Srila Prabhupada talks about leaving home and things like that. We understand that it's different for a materialist and a spiritualist. Bhaktivinoda Thakur said that his home is Vrindavan, and his son was Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. So what is the question of a dark blind well? In that case, we see many very senior devotees in ISKCON who find it more favorable for their service to stay in Grihastha ashram till the end of their life, because they're associating with devotees and that's their service somehow. I don't have much realization on that because I haven't been there, but at least from speaking with them, they're quite content in their spiritual life without having to do this necessarily. Although this is the standard in the previous ages. All right. So that was the first text. Maybe anyone have any thoughts on this first text before we go? Or maybe we can, in the end, share thoughts too. All right, text 2. I think we'll go a little faster now.
The Prachitas went to the seashore in the west, where the great liberated sage Jajali was residing. After perfecting the spiritual knowledge by which one becomes equal towards all living entities, the Prachitas became perfect in Krishna consciousness.
So this is it's kind of a interesting. It's interesting what the Srimad Bhagavatam is saying here is that the purport Srila Prabhupada talks about, you must leave home and, it's a dark well and things like that. But we're also seeing how, while living at home for thousands of years, they developed perfect knowledge in spiritual consciousness. And then even in the next text it says, after perfecting, so basically they were perfecting themselves in this Grahastha ashram. They were advancing, which, everyone knows that's the purpose of Grahastha ashram, is to develop, this selflessness and develop the service to others, develop the, I'm no longer in the center, my child is in the center and Krishna is in the center. And so it's interesting to see that this was a thing that the Prachetas needed to go through in order to become pure devotees and in order to go back to Godhead. It's part of their journey. Next text, please.
After practicing the yogasana for mystic yoga, the Prachetas managed to control their life air, mind, words, and external vision. Thus, by the pranayama process, they were completely relieved of material attachment. By remaining perpendicular, they could concentrate their minds on the uppermost Brahman. While they were practicing this pranayama, the great sage Narada, who is worshipped both by demons and by demigods, came to see them.
I really like this last line. I was looking in the purport, and Srila Prabhupada didn't really explain it. I don't think. I can check again. But he's worshipped by both demons and demigods. That's how dear the saintly persons are. We hear about the 6 Goswamis. Dira dira jana priyo priyakaro. So they're dear to both the peaceful persons, the nice, the wholesome people, and they're also dear to the ruffians. That's the position of the 6 Goswamis. Maybe we can read this purport. It's a short one. Would you like to read, Seshri?
In this verse, the word pare amale are significant. The realization of Brahman is explained in Srimad Bhagavatam. The absolute truth is realized in 3 phases: impersonal, effulgent Brahman, localized Paramatma, and the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Bhagavan, in his prayers, Lord Shiva concentrated upon the personal features of Brahma, described in personal terms as Snigdha Pravadgana Snanam. Bhagavad Gita 4.24.45. Following the instructions of Lord Shiva, the Prachetas also concentrated their minds on the Syama Sundara form of the Supreme Brahman. Although impersonal Brahman, Paramatma Brahman, and Brahman as the Supreme Person are all on the same transcendental platform, the personal future of the Supreme Brahman is the ultimate goal and last word in transcendence.
All right. We can just read. Okay, here it is. Nice. It's describing Narada as equal to the demigods and demons.
The great sage Narad travels everywhere. He goes to the demons and the demigods and is equally respected. He is consequently described herein as Sura Suryadya, worshipped both by demons and by demigods. For Narad Muni, the door of every house is open. Although there is perpetual animosity between the demons and demigods, Narad Muni is welcome everywhere. Narad is considered one of the demigods, of course, and the word of Devarsi means the saintly person among the demigods. But not even the demons envy Narad Muni. Therefore, he is equally worshipped by both by demons and by demigods. A perfect Vaishnav's position should be just like Narad Muni's, completely independent and unbiased.
Wow, that's quite instructive for us, right? We should be independent and unbiased. Interesting. I'm not sure exactly what that means. But anyone have any thoughts? Independent and unbiased? Maybe we can think about it a little more. But yeah, we see that devotees, sometimes they make friends with big billionaires, and they make friends with different influential people in society, and so they're able to act equally with both. All right, I don't think we're going to read any more purports. We'll just go to our focus text, and we can read the text now.
As soon as the Prachetas saw that the great sage Narada had appeared, they immediately got up, even from their asanas. As required, they immediately offered obeisances and worshipped him. And when they saw that Narada Muni was properly seated, they began to ask him questions.
So this is what happens when a saintly person comes. You should have a question ready. This is how you serve the sadhus, is by questioning them. Sometimes, I would feel that, I don't have any good questions. I don't have any philosophical questions. I don't have any, stump the guru questions. But my friend made this point to me that you can also just ask them about themselves. It's not like it always has to be, I read this in this text and I was confused. You could ask them, how did you join Krishna consciousness? Or what projects are you working on? Or what are you inspired to speak about? So there's always something we can ask the sages and persons who come. And it's a sign of spiritual intelligence to actually be able to ask questions. You'd think that the more questions you ask, the less you know. But actually, if you look at, very senior devotees or people who have been around a long time, they're trained on how to ask questions in, the classes. They're trained, even though they know so much, still they are asking questions. Next text, please.
All the Prachetas began to address the great sage Narada. O great sage, O Brahmana, we hope to meet you met with no disturbances while coming here. It is due to our great fortune that we are now able to see you. By traveling of the sun, people are relieved from the fear of darkness of night, fear brought about by thieves and rogues. Similarly, your traveling is like the sun's, for you drive away all kinds of fear.
Prabhupada in the purport talks about how in this age of Kali, it's so dangerous to walk at night. We see that here in East Dallas. It's very dangerous to walk around, Even in the day, there's like these huge dogs that'll jump over the fence and eat you. Not actually, but the devotees, when they come, they're eliminating all fear. Next text, please. Text 6.
Oh, Master, may we inform you that because of our being overly attached to family affairs, we almost forgot the instructions we received from Lord Shiva and Lord Vishnu.
Yeah, so this is kind of the tricky part about the Grihastha ashram. Srila Prabhupada in the purport says that we need sense gratification. We need a basic amount of sense gratification. But if we go just a little too much, if we go a little over the top, then there's this chance of forgetting what is our goal, forgetting what is our purpose, forgetting why we're here. So even, this is specifically talking about family affairs, so we should always be conscious of, not to forget our spiritual master's instructions, not to forget Srila Prabhupada's instructions. keep them in the back of our mind when we do even the most simple activities. Next text, please.
Dear Master, kindly enlighten us in transcendental knowledge, which may act as a torchlight by which we may cross the dark nisans of material existence.
Next text.
The great sage Maitreya continued, "My dear Vidura, being thus petitioned by the Prachetas, the supreme devotee Narada, who is always absorbed in thoughts of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, began to reply."
The great sage Narad said, when a living entity is born to engage in the devotional service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is the Supreme Controller, his birth, all his fruitative activities, his lifespan, his mind, and his words are all factually perfect.
All right, next text.
A civilized human being has three kinds of births. The first birth is by a pure father and mother, and this birth is called birth by semen. The next birth takes place when one is initiated by the spiritual master, and this is called Savitra. The third birth, called Yagyita, takes place when one is given the opportunity to worship Lord Vishnu. Despite the opportunities for attaining such births, even if one gets the lifespan of a demigod, if one does not actually engage in the service of the Lord, everything is useless. Similarly, one's activities may be mundane or spiritual, but they are useless if they are not meant for satisfying the Lord.
Okay, this is very nice text. And Srila Prabhupada in the Prabhupada he talks about how the animals also have the same kind of birth that we do. They also are born between a mother and a father. And so it's really when we get that second birth and the third birth that we're kind of acknowledged as different from the animals. And the point here that the lifespan of a demigod wasted is useless. And we see that, some trees live for as long as demigods do, practically. Trees live for thousands of years. And then they just kind of sit there. But Srila Prabhupada, he would say that, Lord Chaitanya, he was on this planet for, I'm not sure how long. It was under 50 years. I think like 40 something. 42, you said? Anyways, a relatively, short time span on this planet, yet he was so, he's the Supreme Lord. Of course he was impactful, but the point is a long life isn't the goal. Now we're on the focus text. Shrutena tapas vakim vachobis chittavrittibi buddhya vakim nipunyaya balandriya radhasa. Please chant. Shrutena tapas vakim vachobis chittavrittibi
Buddhya vakim nipunaya Nindriya radasa
balandriya radhasa. Shrutena tapasa vakim vachobis chittavrittibi buddhya vakim nipunaya balandriya radhasa. Anyone else? All right. We're a little short on time, so we can just go to the translation. Without devotional service, what is the meaning of severe austerities? The process of hearing, the power of speech, the power of mental speculation, elevated intelligence, strength, and the power of the senses. This is a very nice text. Purport? Or, yeah, you can read. From the Upanishads.
From the Upanishads, the Mundaka Upanishad, we learn
We can just go to
our relationship with the Supreme Lord is never advanced by simple study of the Vedas. There are many Mayavadi sannyasis fully engaged in studying the Vedas, Vedanta Sutra, and Upanishads, but unfortunately they cannot grasp the real essence of knowledge. In other words, they do not know the Supreme Personality of Godhead. What then is the use in studying all the Vedas if one cannot grasp the essence of the Vedas? Krishna. The Lord confirms in Bhagavad Gita, Vedais cha sarver aham eva vedya. By all the Vedas, I am to be known. There are many religious systems wherein penances and austerities are greatly stressed, but at the end, no one understands Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. There is therefore no point in such penance, tapasya, if one actually has approached the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He does not need to undergo severe austerities. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is understood through the process of devotional service. In the 9th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, devotional service is explained as Raja Guhyam, the king of all confidential knowledge. There are many good reciters of Vedic literatures. They recite such works as the Ramayana, the Srimad Bhagavatam, and the Bhagavad Gita. Sometimes these professional readers manifest very good scholarship and exhibit good word jugglery. Unfortunately, they are never devotees of the Supreme Lord. Consequently, they cannot impress upon the audience the real essence of knowledge, Krishna. There are also many thoughtful writers and creative philosophers. Despite all their learning, if they cannot approach the Supreme Personality of Godhead, they are simply useless mental speculators. There are many sharp, intelligent people in the material world, and if they discover so many things for sense gratification, they also analytically study all the material elements, but despite their expert knowledge and expert scientific analysis of the whole cosmic manifestation, their endeavors are useless because they cannot understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead.
I'll pass it to Ajit.
As far as our senses are concerned, there are many animals, both beasts and birds, who are very expert in exercising their senses more keenly than human beings. For example, vultures and hawks can go very high in the sky but can see a small body on the ground very clearly. This means that their eyesight is so keen that they can find an edible corpse from a great distance. Certainly, their eyesight is much keener than human beings, but this does not mean that their existence is more important than that of a human being. Similarly, dogs can smell many things from a far distance. Many fish can understand by the power of sound that an enemy is coming. All these examples are described in Srimad Bhagavatam. If one's senses cannot help him attain the highest perfection of life, realization of the Supreme, they are all useless.
Okay. What a nice purport. Srila Prabhupada is making it very clear that we need to not miss the point of everything we're doing, you know? There's so many, we can often emphasize things which can sometimes distract us from the goal. Srila Prabhupada talks about how Krishna, he says, he's Bhoktaram Yagya Tapasam. He's the beneficiary of all sacrifices and austerities. We were actually just at a Nepali temple yesterday, the Krishna house, and we were doing kirtan for the kids there. It was like a big room of apparently there were 85 to 9-year-old kids there, and we were talking about Krishna and Lord Chaitanya and stuff like that. And it was interesting. I had never been to another Hindu temple before. And, I go in the temple room and there's 10 gods on this side and then 10 gods on that side, and Shiva and Buddha. It's very interesting to see. And yeah, we're hearing here that the point of all the Vedas is to understand Krishna. It's to reach Krishna. The point of our speech is to speak about Krishna. Everything should be utilized for Krishna. We may try to use our senses in so many ways, and without Krishna, it's really just useless endeavor. So, yeah, it's very nice. Does anyone have any other thoughts on this purport? I specifically appreciated this point. So many scholars have studied Bhagavad Gita. So many scholars have studied, Vedanta and things like that, and still they're not becoming devotees. And we can see the purity of Srila Prabhupada's books is that there had been so many translations of Bhagavad Gita into English already. But how many devotees did they make? And so really, if it doesn't make a devotee, it's useless. It's just a dead book, But Srila Prabhupada, he was able to make people devotees who, just by looking at the cover of the book, that was enough to start their devotional life. Just by reading it, even without meeting devotees, they were able to become devotees from that. So yeah, sometimes I think like to be a devotee you need to, well, at least for myself, I'm like, oh wow, like we need to study all the books and study everything and that. And sometimes I look at other devotees and like, maybe they don't read as much or something like that. I don't read much. But somehow they understand Krishna so deeply, or like it's just such an ingrained part of them. And that's really the essence of our reading. That's the essence of our studying, is to understand Krishna and to attain Krishna and to love Krishna. If you do all of this without loving Krishna, then what Srila Prabhupada is saying here is it's pointless. So it's almost 8:15. We can open up for discussion, open up for comments, things like that.
Thinking on the topic of understanding the purpose of our reading. We don't read because we're trying to get more and more knowledge. We read because we're trying to reawaken our love for Krishna. And so I was just thinking of our friend the other night who was saying that, I really try to I read a little bit and I really try to meditate on it and absorb it, but I'm thinking all of my reading, how much am I really absorbing? How much am I really remembering? But we were talking about how it's not necessarily the point. When we read Gita or Bhagavatam, it's Krishna himself. It's like you're spending time with him, you're getting to know him, you're becoming closer to him. So I just remember when I started reading Bhagavatam, I was so I was kind of overwhelmed. I was just like, okay, how am I going to read this in a certain period of time? And I was thinking too much that I'm going to get more knowledge, or I'm going to get more wise or whatever. But it helped me a lot when I switched my mentality to you know what? I'm going to take this as a meditation whenever I read. It's like chanting, the holy name is Krishna, so you're not supposed to chant because you're trying to get to a certain number of rounds. That's a whole other thing. But you're chanting because you're spending time with Krishna and you're reconnecting with him, you're remembering him.
Yeah.
So I was just thinking it's the same thing when it comes to the scriptures. It's just a way to associate with Krishna.
Yeah, that's wonderful. It's such a nice point. And if you look at all of these, it's they all can be meditations. They all can be, devotional if you make it that. When you wake up super early and you take a cold shower, if you think of Krishna, it's a meditation at that point. It's like a yagya for Krishna. I'm waking up early to please you. If you talk about Krishna with your speech and you're just absorbed, it's a meditation on Krishna. It's a sacrifice for his pleasure. I'm not sure about mental speculation. But yeah, the power of the senses, if you use your eyes to look at Krishna, then that should be a meditation. It should be, in that way. And same thing with tasting prasadam, which we're anticipating soon. It should also be a meditation. It shouldn't just be eating, but we're honoring. We're, in the consciousness of this is coming from Shri Radha Kalachandji. Any other thoughts or points on this verse or topic?
Unless somebody has something, I had a question also.
Okay.
In the actual verse, I know we went over the word for word, but I mean the Sanskrit. I noticed Radha was there, but it's Indriya Radhasa. I guess that's a different word, or?
Yeah, I noticed that too, and I was like, oh wow. But then I checked it, and it wasn't. I couldn't make much of a connection between Srimati Radharani and the word Radhasa.
I guess Srimati Radharani, she doesn't have the line on top of the first A, right? Does she? Radha. No.
I think she does actually. I'm not sure. Dustin, do you have any points? Anything you wrote down? Discussion topics?
What I wrote down, I just wrote down too much sense gratification isn't good in spiritual life, but we still some is necessary. But if we indulge too much, we will forget our ultimate goal in life, which is Krishna.
Mm-hmm. Great. Yeah, I really like that point too. I remember Sachinandan Maharaj, he made this, he quoted Srila Prabhupada, who made this analogy, where if you go to India, you see that the women, they take a big pot of water and they put it on their head, and somehow they're able to do like everything with a giant pot of water on their head. They're like, talking, they're picking up sticks, they're, doing this and that, taking care of the cows, all with this pot of water on their head. Or they're talking with their friends, or, talking about the latest news. And somehow they're able to keep this balance. They're able to keep this pot of water on their heads. And so the analogy was made that we should always keep the goal in mind. Always balance this goal of, I want to go back to Godhead. I want to be a pure devotee. I want to, I want to see Krishna one day. Often, we can think the goal is so far away that we don't even think about it anymore. I'm so far away from being a pure devotee. Might as well not even think about it. But the more we keep that consciousness, we can be surprised that Krishna fulfills our spiritual desires very quickly. So if we actually want to be a pure devotee very, very bad, then we'll see how fast that we can do it, even if it's beyond our qualification, even if we're so far and so fallen and so conditioned. If we just have that desire, Krishna will be able to push us so far. So we should feed that desire, we should maintain that desire, and we should keep it on our head at all times, that even if it's in the back of the mind, but I want to be a pure devotee, I want to advance, I want to please my spiritual master. And Krishna will find ways to fulfill that. He'll find ways to arrange for that and push us farther than we could have pushed ourselves. All right, well, are there any other comments or thoughts, reflections?
I was just thinking on the topic of sense gratification, that it seems like for our kirtan or different kinds of like quote-unquote devotional music, we look for some sense gratification there. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of a spectrum where it's like, okay, on one side you have music to please the Lord, and then on the other side you have music to please my senses. And sometimes we have to find that kind of balance.
Yeah, it can be tricky. The kirtan scene, we should always be very attentive to trying to please Krishna before anyone and anything else. Of course, we want to please the devotees, but when we please Krishna, we please the devotees primarily. I know Jayadvaita Swami, he always speaks on the kirtan standards, and he talks about how yeah, like there's these very talented musicians, very talented singers, and they have what you would think is a very high standard of kirtan. You know, it's a very high standard. And then there's the person who's maybe singing a little off key in the temple room, and might be playing kartals a little weird. But Krishna sees that as the higher standard if they're sincere, and if they're actually desiring to please Krishna. That is the higher standard of a kirtan. That's more valuable for Krishna. So we should always put the emphasis on the purity, always put the emphasis on the sincerity. We felt before that when a very enthusiastic and sincere person leads a kirtan, it's like, like on Mondays and Thursdays, when Chakri Prabhu starts leading kirtan, it's like we just gotta dance somehow. Yeah, thank you for bringing up that point. Yeah, sometimes sense gratification can sneak into our devotional activities. Yeah, of course, he's a good singer. All right, well, if there's nothing else, then we can wrap up and, chant Hare Krishna. Be happy. Thank you all for being here and tolerating. Hare Krishna. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Nitai Gaura Premanande. Hari Bol.
एतादृशी एतादृशी तव कृपा भगवन् ममापि दुर्दैवैदृशं जनिनारायणम् एतादृशी तव कृपा भगवन् ममापि दुर्दैवैदृशं जनिनारायणम् चेतदर्पणमार्जनम् अवमहादामाग्निर्वापनम् श्रेयकैरवचम् किङ्करङ्गमां विषमे भवां बुद्धम् अयि नन्दतनुजाय पतितं किङ्करङ्गमां विषमे भवां बुद्धम् कृपया कृपया तव पाद पङ्कजस्थितः धूलिसदृशं विचिन्तय अयि नन्दतनया न धनं न जनं न सुन्दरीं कवितां भजगति सकामयि न धनं न जनं न सुन्दरीं कवितां भजगति सकामयि मम जनमनी जनमनी सारे भवता भक्ति रहे तुति न धनं न जनं न सुन्दरीं कवितां भजगति सकामयि न धनं न जनं सुन्दरीं जगति सकामयि न धनं न जनं सुन्दरीं कवितां भजगति सकामयि मम जनमनी जनमनीश्वरे भवता भक्ति रहे न धनं न जनं न सुन्दरीं कवितां भजगति सकामयि मम जनमनी जनमनीश्वरे